All right, so you want to build $1 million business, huh?
Yeah.
Who doesn't, right?
Well, today we're diving deep into this interview with a business expert, Josh Kaufman, on the Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
He doesn't sugarcoat anything, busts some myths, and really lays out a clear framework, which is super useful whether you're, itching to launch a side hustle or you're
Yeah.
rethinking that MBA price tag.
It's interesting, right? Because Kaufman really takes what seems like this complicated topic and just breaks it down.
Yeah.
He starts with this idea that every business, no matter how small or how big,
Right.
boils down to 5 core parts.
It's like a recipe, like the ingredients for success.
Exactly, a recipe for success.
Oh, okay. Okay.
First one, value creation.
Okay.
And here's where it gets interesting. He goes beyond just saying, solve a problem.
Right.
He really dives into this idea that sometimes customers don't even know what they need until you show it to them.
And he uses that example of the liquid laundry detergent.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
People thought they were waiting for the washing machine to fill up because of the powder detergent.
Right, right.
But it turned out they wanted to see the detergent dissolve.
That visual cue.
That visual cue sparked a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Crazy.
Imagine if you missed that insight.
Huge. So how do we actually apply this? Whether we're entrepreneurs or just looking for opportunities, where do we start?
He talks about this idea of looking at our daily lives a bit differently.
Okay.
Like, what are those little annoyances, those things we just accept as, well, that's just how it is.
Right, those little frustrations.
Those can be your gold mines.
Oh, like that microphone glitch we were talking about before we started recording.
Exactly.
We've just been living with it, but man, if someone solved that, like, seamlessly, tons of podcasters would throw money at them.
Problem identified, right.
Yes.
But how do you get people actually interested in the solution?
All right. So that's where marketing comes in.
Marketing. And he ties this back to our core human drives.
Right. He breaks it down into these 5 core drives that influence our decisions.
Acquiring, bonding, learning, defending, and feeling.
And he makes this point that the most successful businesses tap into more than one of these.
More than one. Think about Nike.
Okay.
They've nailed this. It's not just athletic shoes anymore. It's status. It's belonging to this community.
It's a feeling.
It's pushing your limits. They've tapped into, like, multiple drives.
Yeah.
Incredibly effectively.
It's like Apple, too, right? Like their whole marketing approach, it's not about specs and features. It's
Right.
about, this feeling you get, being connected, being creative, part of something.
Absolutely.
It's subtle, but it's powerful.
It's very powerful. Okay, so you've got their attention.
Yeah.
You got to turn that interest into income.
Okay.
That's sales.
And I feel like this is where a lot of people get tripped up,
Yeah.
myself included.
Right.
What's Kaufman's take on actually closing that sale?
He's all about focusing on the benefit, not just the features.
Okay.
It's not, our candles are soy-based. It's imagine coming home to this relaxing, eco-friendly ambiance.
Oh, so you're painting a picture, not just giving a list of ingredients.
Exactly. But then he emphasizes that closing the sale, it's not the end goal.
Right.
It's the beginning.
Okay.
You want that customer to come back.
That lifetime value, right. That's the key.
Exactly. It's exceeding their expectations, building that relationship, making sure that every interaction they have with you just reinforces that they made the right choice.
Because it's a lot harder to find new customers than it is to keep your existing ones happy.
100%. And all of this, the sales, the customer satisfaction, it has to lead to a healthy bottom line.
Okay.
Which brings us to that 5th part.
Yeah.
Finance.
Finance.
Yeah.
This is the one that tends to make people nervous.
Sure.
But Kaufman's approach here, it's actually pretty refreshing. Like, he demystifies it.
He really does.
It's not about being a math whiz. It's about understanding those fundamental questions. Yeah. Like, what does it cost to actually make your product or your service?
Sure. Cool.
What are those fixed costs versus the variable costs?
Right.
You're actually making a profit. And not just any profit, but a profit that's sustainable.
Exactly.
For the business, but also for you.
For you to keep going.
Right.
It's about making those informed decisions, having that clear understanding of your numbers, not just
crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Exactly, not just winging it. And this is where Kaufman kind of throws a curveball.
Okay.
He questions this whole idea that you need an MBA to be successful in business.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words there, does he? Calls them very expensive interviews in some cases.
Right. And let's be real, those top-tier programs,
Oh, I know.
over 200 grand. Easy.
Easy.
Often with loans.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee of a high-paying job or even long-term success at the end of it all.
It makes you think, right.
It really does.
Like, is it actually worth it? So if an MBA isn't the magic ticket, what does it take to go from an idea to, let's say, making like 10 grand a month
Okay.
with your own business? Is that even realistic for, the average person?
Kaufman seems to think so.
Okay.
He gives this pretty clear roadmap, and it starts with validation.
Validation. Okay.
But he doesn't just mean like asking your friends and family.
Right, because they're legally obligated to say it's a good idea.
Exactly. They have to. He's talking about looking for concrete buying signals.
Okay, like what kind of signals?
Pre-orders are huge. If someone's willing to put money down
Before the product even exists?
before it exists, that's a good sign. You're onto something.
So like, I don't know, a Kickstarter campaign for a physical product.
Exactly.
Or even like a waiting list for a service where people are signing up
Yeah.
early to get
Right.
access.
Yes. Those are clear signs that people actually want what you're offering
That they're willing to pay for it.
to pay for it.
Yeah.
So once you've got that validation, he says, start small, scale gradually.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up in this whole big launch,
It's more about like dipping your toes in, getting some feedback, refining as you go.
Exactly. Exactly. Like he used the example of starting a microphone company.
Okay.
You wouldn't just like build a giant factory right away.
Hmm.
Maybe you hand assemble a small batch. You get feedback from those early adopters.
Right. Make it better.
Exactly.
Just on what they say.
And then, use that to improve your design and everything.
Makes sense. So it's about managing that risk, learning as you go.
Yes. Learning by doing instead of just going all in blindly.
Okay, I like that. And that kind of ties into his whole emphasis on experimentation, right?
100%.
He's all about viewing those so-called failures as valuable information.
Yes. Data points.
He talks about this concept called the explore-exploit trade-off, which I'll admit, that one went a little over my head.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more complicated than it is.
Okay.
But basically, it's about finding that balance between exploring,
Okay.
trying new things.
Experiment.
Exactly. Testing different approaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then exploiting, maximizing what's already working.
So you're not just trying new things for the sake of it.
Right.
You're also, like, leveraging what you already know is effective.
Exactly. And throughout all of it, you're gathering feedback, right, to make more informed decisions.
Constantly iterating.
Constantly.
So you're adaptable, you're responding to the market.
That's what it's all about.
Love it.
And then he dives into this idea of rapid skill acquisition.
Okay, so we've gone from, like, starting a business to now, like, learning new skills.
Oh, he connects it all.
Okay.
He challenges this whole 10,000-hour rule.
The 10,000-hour rule, yeah.
And says you can become surprisingly good at pretty much anything with 20 hours of focused practice.
20 hours. Okay, that's a lot less intimidating than 10,000.
Right.
So what's the secret? How do we make the most of those 20 hours?
He says, start by picking a lovable project.
Lovable.
Something you're genuinely interested in, passionate about.
Okay, so the passion's important.
Yeah, because learning new stuff, it can be tough, right? Especially outside of our comfort zone.
It can be.
So having that interest makes a huge difference.
Makes you more likely to stick with it.
Exactly. Exactly. And once you've found that project,
Yeah.
break it down. Break the skill down into smaller chunks.
Okay, so instead of saying, like, I want to learn how to code,
Right.
it's, I want to build a simple website.
Exactly. Way less overwhelming.
Way less overwhelming.
It's about those small victories
Those small wins.
to keep you motivated.
Totally, totally.
And he also says, don't get caught up in the research phase.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
Right. It's so easy to spend hours reading articles, watching tutorials.
Oh, yeah, all the YouTube tutorials.
But the real magic happens when you actually start doing.
Action, action, action.
Yes. He's all about learning by doing and making mistakes,
Right, embracing the mistakes.
using them to get better. Like that saying, the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried.
Oh, I love that quote.
Right.
It's so true.
It's about embracing those early, messy stages,
Yeah.
knowing that they're part of the process.
So we've been talking about this whole rapid skill acquisition thing.
This idea that you can get pretty good at something in just 20 hours.
Right.
But how does that actually apply to, like, building a business?
I mean, there's so many different skills involved.
That's true. But Kaufman actually addresses that directly.
Okay.
He says, think about it this way.
Yeah.
Marketing, sales, customer service, managing your finances.
Right.
You don't need to be a master of all of those overnight.
Right.
What's important is that willingness to just dive in,
Okay.
learn as you go, and embrace that initial learning curve.
So instead of getting overwhelmed by everything you should know,
Exactly.
it's more about breaking it down into those smaller chunks, those 20-hour chunks.
Exactly. This week, I'm tackling Facebook ads.
Next week, it's mastering that accounting software.
Right, right.
The key is Don't let the enormity of it all paralyze you.
Yeah, don't get stuck.
Take it one step at a time, and remember, those early mistakes, those are just lessons.
Lessons learned, yeah.
Exactly.
It's about progress,
Right.
not perfection,
100%.
and being kind to yourself in the process.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we covered a lot of ground here.
We did.
Those 5 core parts of a business, the whole MBA myth.
How to validate your idea, how to get to that, 10K a month mark.
Yeah.
Even this whole rapid skill acquisition concept.
If you had to distill it all down, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
I think it's that business success, it's not this exclusive club,
Okay.
right? It's not about knowing some secret handshake.
It's about understanding these core principles,
Okay.
being willing to experiment, being willing to learn from your mistakes, and most importantly,
Yeah.
taking action.
Action, action, action. Right.
Yes, it's about solving problems.
Adding value, building something that you actually care about.
I like that.
He uses this great phrase he calls business a generative act,
Okay, I like that.
creating something that makes the world a little bit better in the process.
It all goes back to that point about spotting those problems, right?
Yes.
Those little annoyances, those someone should invent something for this moments.
Mm-hmm.
Those could be million-dollar ideas if we just, have to look at them the right way.
Next time you're grumbling about something.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
That might be your inner entrepreneurial whispering to you.
That's a good point.
Who knows? Maybe that's the start of your next big adventure.
So much to think about. As always, a huge thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll catch you next time.